Chapter 10. Wherever is food, therein dwells that. To me the consciousness appears and disappears. You are telling a lie. How can you know that the consciousness is not? Only in sleep the consciousness is not. From the moment of waking to the moment of sleeping, the consciousness is there. Whenever you observe an object, the mind has to be there to interpret it. With consciousness, the mind is there to perceive. Whenever an object is seen, witnessing happens. I do not know what I should call this witnessing. Without mind, there cannot be any witnessing. It can happen only when the objects of mind exist, which is predicated upon the presence of the consciousness. Primarily, witnessing happens to the consciousness in the realm of the mind. All the activities occur to the mind and intellect, and witnessing of that happens to the self. If the consciousness holds on to the body as its identity, then true knowledge will never dawn on you. The self is given the guise of the body, hence the trouble. There are many gurus and many paths. How do we select the right guru and a correct path? Many visitors come here, and many of them are mainly interested in subjects connected with body and mind. But I am not interested in these topics. Rarely someone wants knowledge of the self. My present subject matter is, whatever is gone does not vanish and die, but disperses and manifests into multiplicity. When the consciousness leaves the body, it remains ample, widespread, and manifest. In the manifest world, avatars and social workers have for thousands of years been trying to bring about a change. But in spite of their collective efforts, there has been no improvement at all. Human beings all have the same type of mind and intellect in which they are embroiled and caught up. But no improvement is possible in that state. I always go by the basic principle in the background. Unknowingly, everything is happening against that background, from that principle. A person is normally engaged in activities that may be considered good or bad, but are actually just mental occupation. Everybody is trying to protect and preserve the time factor, that is, the consciousness. So long as time is there, consciousness is there, and time is there so long as the body is present. When the lifespan is over, time has gone. When time has gone, consciousness is gone. As long as the beingness is there, activities proceed. Once you realize that you are not the body, then there is no more attraction for the manifestation. When a firm conviction is established that one is not the body, one's behavior has become just like that of the five elements, claiming no credit as things are merely happening by themselves. Such a one can have no needs and demands. Many people clothed in spiritual attitudes are not inclined to give up their bodily identity. In the name of spirituality, they go on pursuing creeds, faiths, and disciplines. But they do not relinquish their cherished identity, nor do they proceed inwards towards their self. All the diverse guises that are adopted are the characteristics of the mind, its various inclinations, latencies, and not those of the self. Many people change creeds as some change wives when dictated by their mind. When a butcher attains the realized state, he continues his vocation of slaughtering animals because he knows that it is only the function of the body, but that he is not the body and mind. He does not even need a god nor the knowledge of the Brahman. Once you realize that you are not the body and the mind, you have no needs and demands, then you are one with the manifest consciousness. In due course, you are not even the consciousness, when you dwell in the highest, thus ultimately also transcending the consciousness. Manifest consciousness is the Brahman. Once stabilized in the Brahman, there is no longer any use for knowledge of the Brahman, that is, knowledge of the self. What can be the use of Brahman to the Brahman? Therefore I, the Brahman, do nothing and need nothing at this stage of videhistati, the body-free state. There is no high nor low, no real nor unreal. No inside nor outside, and no dimension of any kind in that state. In the name of spirituality, people adopt as their religion certain creeds and concepts and develop pride. Later they give up all that and accept another creed, and so on. Finally, they will never know when their bodies kick off. At present, you put your faith in the body. Once you give up that faith, you are the Brahman, the manifest principle. Bhagavan Krishna said, "Remember me, I am always there." What is that state of Krishna? He is beyond the body-mind state. That means he is the consciousness. Further, Krishna as the Absolute is the witness of consciousness also. So whenever anybody thinks of him, it is of eternity only. In thinking thusly, a devotee himself dwells in eternity. Therefore Krishna says, "Remember me, memorize me." Do not use your identity with the body, but by all means use the body. Although I amness dwells in the body, it rejects the body as I am not it. I, in the Krishna state, do not belong to the Hindu, Christian, or Muslim faith. Why? Because I am not the body, and therefore I prevail in a Hindu, Christian, and Muslim, in everyone and everything. Bring me a Muslim or Christian without a body. Can you bring anyone like that? All religions and creeds are at the body-mind level. Is there any indwelling principle, such as Hindu, Christian, or Muslim, in the food we cultivate and consume? Thus, food does not provide any religious nourishment to indicate the religion of the person. A child of a Muslim food body is considered a Muslim conventionally. This applies similarly to a child of a Hindu. Because the parents call themselves Hindu or Muslim, they impose their particular religion on their offspring. Could there be any religion, creed, or faith in the food, a product of the 5 elements? From the same eating place, people of different faiths consume a common food. But the moment the food is consumed by their body, it is given the religious status of that food body. How strange! In food, innately and dormantly, the sense of I amness is already present. Once the food is consumed and assimilated in the body, the I amness manifests itself. With the appearance of a body, the necessity to assign a name is felt. We impose a name to identify that body, and then the very name is taken as the person. With the body, a form appears, and with the form, a name to identify it. But how strange! The name is considered as the very person. The world is full of children. Actually, they are products of food, and children yet to be born are already extant in the food essence, though in a dormant state. When the food essence takes a form, it manifests as a body, and the body provides sustenance to the indwelling I am principle. Just as milk is sucked by a child from a feeding bottle, so the food essence is consumed by the I amness from the body. It is eaten and digested by the I amness the whole day. With this understanding, we should realize that we are not the body. This is liberation and realization. All of you are quiet now. Why? Because you are being cleared of your present identity, of your conviction that you are a body and mind. Therefore, you are unable to ask any questions. To me, witnessing of the body, mind, and beingness just happens. Now suppose some pain is felt due to some cause. Who understands it? It is the consciousness, which is sustained by the food essence body. By consciousness, I mean the universal consciousness only. But the witness of the consciousness is the highest principle, the Absolute. The fragrance or sweetness of the food essence body is the knowledge I am. It has no name and form. It is the I love state and the I taste state. But from your body-mind state you will go to pilgrimages and various gurus. So long as the consciousness is there, that humming goes on. And who does the humming? The principle which is humming and saying, I am, is itself your guru. If you imbibe what I say and understand this guru, the consciousness, and dwell there, you will be self-realized. Then no more rituals, disciplines, and spirituality are necessary. Is it clear now to you what is termed guru? It is the sense of I amness. In the devotional approach, worship is prescribed. In the ritual, prasada is prepared first, which is a food offering to the deity being worshipped. Before invoking the deity by ringing a bell, the prasada must be kept ready because God is sustained on food, and the God is no one else but the consciousness which depends on food. Once a disciple, who had learned the art of bringing back to life the dead, saw a bone lying on his path while going through a forest. He felt like testing his skill on the bone, which happened to be that of a lion. So he began chanting mantras and performing the appropriate rituals. But he forgot to provide any offering. The bone materialized into a lion, who appeared quite hungry. So the animal looked all around for food, and not finding any in its vicinity, roared ferociously and pounced upon the very disciple and gobbled him up. Whenever food of the right quality and in the proper form is available, and when the vital breath functions in it, the I amness principle manifests itself through it. This I amness is the Bhagavan, the godly principle. During my wanderings after meeting my guru, I once visited a holy place known as Pandapur. This place is famous for the temple of gods, Vitoba. I used to carry a staff, and to cover myself I only had a piece of loincloth. On this occasion I stumbled upon a cremation ground. I was not interested in visiting temples, but I liked to see the temple architecture rather than the idols inside. Within the confines of that cremation ground, a skinny man was sitting in a corner. Out of curiosity, I approached him and queried, "Oh, sir, why do you sit in this God-forsaken place?" He replied, "Why do I sit here? I really do not know." "Don't you visit the temple of Lord Vitoba?" I asked him further. "No, why should I?" was his short reply. "How do you manage for food?" I asked. "Well, that is no problem. I eat the balls of food kept as offerings for the dead bodies, and I use the cloth in which the bodies are wrapped to cover myself." He said this while I stood quite astonished at his naive replies and continued, "Why should I go anywhere for my needs? Wherever is food, therein dwells that." These words carried a profound meaning, and I felt that he was spiritually quite an advanced soul. Why should we go anywhere? Wherever there is food formed together with the vital breath, therein dwells the godly principle. Therefore I do not go anywhere. This godly principle is also called Bhagavan, the consciousness, the I amness, etc., and is praised by many names and titles. After self-realization, any behavior or actions expressed through the body of a sage are spontaneous and totally unconditioned. They cannot be bound to any disciplines. A realized sage may be discovered in an unkempt person reclining in the ashes of a cremation ground or on the cushioned bed in a palace as a king. He may be a butcher by vocation or a successful businessman. Nevertheless, a realized one, having transcended the realm of beingness, ever abides in the eternal absolute. February 4th, 1980. Chapter 11. Even the highest is useless to the highest. It seems to me that wherever a form is infused with life, consciousness is produced, which appears by reflection of awareness in matter. Should it not be the other way around? Whatever you say is all right from the body-mind state. When the sense of being is cleansed from its body-mind state, then it is universal. This is the source for the creation of the 5 elements, 3 gunas, followed by the vegetable and animal kingdoms. There is prana, the vital force in plants. Is there also consciousness in plants? All that is seen and perceived in space is the creation of consciousness and is infused with it. The entire created world of forms will finally merge into space. From the bodily standpoint, all forms appear as separate entities, but at the consciousness level they are the consciousness manifest and not separate. As you make spiritual progress, you will realize that the source of the universe is your consciousness only. At present, you are in the grip of the discursive intellect because of your identity with the body. Therefore, you are unable to understand. Whatever knowledge you now collect is from this identity, but that is not true knowledge. But when you have the knowledge about what you are, you will understand that the very world and universe are contained in the speck of your consciousness only. At this stage you would have transcended your body-mind sense, but today whatever knowledge you acquire is through your firm belief that you are the body-mind. When you see the inner world as something external, you term it a dream. But what is it that is perceived inside? It is contained in the sense that you are, in your consciousness. Exactly the same process takes place in the waking state also. Your consciousness, the sense of presence, is the very shell in which the waking world or the dream world proliferates. This is the actual state of affairs. But you accept all that you see with your body sense, and whatever you perceive is through the inadequate yardstick of your limited intellect. Whatever is visible or perceptible is an outcome of space only. When all that disappears, again space prevails. When your world concretizes out of space and in space, you term all that with various names and titles for your convenience to carry out your day-to-day activities. In reality, no such names and titles exist. None of these creations has any authoritative, valid form or individuality of its own. To realize this, you must accomplish Jnana Yoga, which means the self subsiding in the self. Again, Jnana Yoga means to inquire how this I amness and the world came about. To realize that I amness and the world are one is Jnana Yoga. Here the knowledge I am should subside in itself. But all you really want is to keep your body-mind sense intact. That just will not do. Thus, to realize that I amness means the manifest world and the universe is a very fulfillment of Jnana Yoga. When the sense of being appears, it has no body sense. Out of that sense of being, the whole cosmos is created. In that creation, you also have a form, but you accept body as your identity and move about and function in the world. The principle that motivates and enlivens the body is the sense of beingness only, but it is not the body. All this play in the cosmos and the world functions in the consciousness, and finally the play will merge into consciousness. Ponder over this without identifying with the body, and you, the consciousness, will know that accepting the form as identity is Maya, illusion. Thus the consciousness is the very seed principle of the entire cosmos. It comprises the dynamic life force, guna, which is the quality of beingness, and prana, or vital breath. Consciousness gives the knowledge that you are. When the consciousness first appears, it is free from identification of any kind with this or that. Even though being the dynamic manifest universal principle, due to its identification with the body, it suffers pain and pleasure. The consciousness knows itself through itself. Only a rare one realizes that the entire cosmos manifestation springs out of one's seed consciousness. From Atma Yoga, only Visbha Yoga, that is, one's unity with the cosmos, is realized when one unites with oneself. The self abiding in the self is the Jnana Yoga, which is a nameless and formless state. But later, whatever manifests itself assumes a name and form. By merely acquiring knowledge, one cannot claim to be a Jnani. The Jnana Yogi is not required to know anything, as he is knowledge itself. Jnana Yoga is the highest state in spirituality. In the state there is no individuality, as this is the all-pervading state. Rarely will someone put a question from this standpoint, and rare still will there be someone who will answer these questions. the sense of individuality and needs are felt prior to Jnana Yoga. But after the accomplishment of Jnana Yoga, one is beyond needs and individual personality. Kundalini Yoga experts revel in the visions and powers obtained through yoga, but will not expound the source of Kundalini energy. I quite agree that we shall reach the highest level. But you have said that from the highest suddenly springs I amness, thus we are at the root of a total mystery. What is the source prompting you to speak of levels and to think of reaching the highest level? Level is only a concept. As a result of separation from the highest, the principal concept I am arose, and subsequently other concepts developed. Separation means otherness, duality. I thought I heard you say that there is total non-differentiation at the supreme level. On that supreme level, is there also total I amness? Out of non-knowingness, knowingness appears. This knowingness should realize itself. When we speak, we should investigate from where the language arises. It sprouts from the sense of I amness. But what is the source of this I amness? Actually, I do not talk. Only when occurring spontaneously does the talk express itself. But the primary occurrence is the reminder I am, out of which springs the language and the talk. So what is this I amness? Remember that in the primary reminder I am, the whole cosmos and your body exist. All bodies are created from and sustained on material biological essences. But the sense of being is the quintessence, sattva guna, of the body. Who and from where is this sense of being? This has to be thoroughly investigated. When this is done, while abiding necessarily in the knowledge I am, the sense of beingness, an amazing revelation will be made, namely that from your own seed beingness, the whole manifest universe is projected, including your body. This supreme and powerful principle, though being itself without a form and name, upon sensing I am, instantly embraces the body and mistakenly accepts this as its own. It clings to the body identity so quickly that the fact of its own independent existence is easily missed. The essence of being, which is humming I am, is a prerequisite for any functioning of the body. When a person is sick and there is no response when the patient is called or beckoned, this sense of being is clouded. Should one fall asleep as many times as possible in order to experience I amness in the waking state? I amness cannot be experienced or recognized from the body-mind sense. It is the I amness that makes the body and senses function and experience. You are quite knowledgeable. Now understand this. If you think you are dying, it shows you still identify with your body and that your knowledge I am has not merged in itself, which also indicates that you have not attained Jnana Yoga. Your spiritual knowledge, therefore, smacks of impurity. While you are actually the manifest knowledge I am, you cling to a body as yourself. This is the impurity. We talked about death, which is the end point of life. But what about the starting point, the birth? Prior to birth, you were in the womb for 9 months. During that period, did you have humkara, the humming of beingness? Immediately after birth, the indwelling beingness does not yet feel itself palpably. After a few months, recognition starts. Still later, the child begins to know various objects, such as his body and his mother, as also sounds and words. At this stage, through the mother, he knows his name and other ideas. You as a fetus, did you know yourself in the womb of the mother? But there was no consciousness in that form. Was it knowing itself in those 9 months in the womb? No, but it was there. Consciousness is all prevailing, but it remained dormant in the fetus because it was not a fully developed body. But it was in the fetus. What is the argument? Consciousness is everywhere. It is in the flowers, you, me, everywhere. Good, I have understood. What did you understand? That there is nothing else but consciousness. No, this is not. The correct understanding will be when you realize that whatever you have understood so far is invalid. With the fulfillment of Jnana Yoga, all that which is understood is made unreal. The so-called sages who revel in powers obtained and in honor received as a result are not fully realized, because their abidance in the self is not complete. A child who is unblemished is fed with ideas just as the blank screen of a TV set displays pictures transmitted from the outside. The child principle, which is consciousness, is the product of a chemical process. I like to refer to consciousness as chemical, but you at the highest level are not that chemical in which all the world drama happens. Suppose you are 100-year-old who holds on to this memory that he is 100 years old. It is the chemical. For example, look at the picture of my guru on the wall here. Now, who is holding on to the image of my guru? It is the chemical of the photograph. Now, this chemical in the body holds on to an identity and carries out activities through the body. I call this expression mechanical. But the chemical photograph could not have retained the picture of your guru if he had not been there. But who is this guru, and where would this memory I am as well as the chemical be if the highest, that is the Absolute, was not there? The eternal existence of the Absolute alone makes the appearance of consciousness and all world play possible, so the world play is an image created by consciousness. Has universal consciousness taken the form of Maharaj? That speck of consciousness has taken the form of universal consciousness. Its image is the entire universe, just like the pinprick of consciousness in deep sleep develops into a dream world. Does it mean that you are in my dream world? Before referring to me as you, investigate as to what you are. Just as a boomerang hits the person who throws it, similarly your own question has bounced back on you. So you, what is that? And what is more, I am not the body, nor that chemical even. This chemical or consciousness is also called Mahatava, Mulamaya, Hiranyagarbha, Brahma Sutra, etc. But the sum total of all this is the Atma Prem, the love of the self. The one who understands and realizes the Mahatattva is called the Mahatma. Presumptuously, you may think you are Jnani, but if you think so, you are an ignorant person only. So the awareness is the highest possible term. Awareness appears to be above I amness. Yes, provided awareness does not feel I amness. The knowledge of the entire universe merges into that highest state. Whatever qualitative manifestation is there, it is called Bhagavan. All the titles and statuses suggested by the titles and everything else have merged into nothingness. The Iswara, which has become Viva Vishaya, that is the universal manifestation, has become Nirvishaya, that is one without the subjectivity even. This can be understood only by those who are extremely keen to know their own nature. Whatever information I give is about that spark, the speck of consciousness, which has delivered this manifest universe. Further, I, the Absolute, am not that speck, but I cannot give any information about me, the Absolute. There have been so many dissolutions of cosmoses and universes, so also eons have come and gone. But I, the Absolute, remain untouched, and my kingdom is ever quiet. Suppose a question is asked of you, what were you 100 years back? You would reply, I was not. That means I was not like this. That is, like this present I am. Who and how could he say I was not like this? The one who says this, was he not there? The one who was prior to 100 years was not like this present I am, but he was and is now. He is this I, the Absolute. All right, use whatever words and concepts you like and satisfy yourself. When I call someone a cheat, it satisfies me, and also I call someone a Mahatma because it satisfies me. What were you 100 years ago? Ponder over it. Why do you not investigate the point of conception and its further development? Instead, you are too busy acquiring spiritual and worldly gains. That will not help. In the vegetable juices and food essences, this svarasa, sense of knowingness, and prarabdha, destiny, exists already in dormant condition, and the quintessence of the food essences and juices is the sense of being or the knowledge I am. But could that principle be there without prana? Who should be there without prana? Is it in the flower? Not only in flowers, but even in the color. It is everywhere. After listening to the knowledge that I am expounding, what will happen? One who understands and imbibes the knowledge will come to the conclusion that whatever is seen, heard, experienced, and acquired is totally useless and redundant. Finally, no one will remain but the Niskama Parabrahman, the desireless, eternal, absolute state. We go on with spiritual disciplines such as worshipping a god, penance, japa, etc., to acquire something spiritual. But if the purpose is attained, it will be Nishkama Parabrahman, which proves everything is useless. Even the highest is useless to the highest. This state is also titled Purna Brahman, Paramatman, and Paramesvara. Now go back one day prior to your conception. That is also the Purna Brahman state. There was no need for anything then. I try to follow my thoughts and feelings, but I find that they are changing all the time. I know this changing happens against the background of the changeless in me. Will this way of thinking be useful to me? Yes, it will be useful, but intellectually it is all right, but the thinking is unreal. What do you mean by the changeless? When could there be the changeless? Only when you do not know you are, when the sense of being totally merges in itself. Were you not in that changeless state a day prior to your conception? From your body-mind sense, you observe everything as separate entities, such as I, you, we, they, etc. But to the changeless absolute, all this play of cosmos and universe happens in the cell of beingness. Which identity has remained unchanged from your childhood to your present age? No identity in the world can ever remain the same and unchanging. I think the I principle does not change, is it not so? Your I principle has still not understood. It is the product of the five elemental play which is always in a state of flux. So how can you attribute the quality of I amness to the absolute state? In that state there is no scope at all for any play of the five elements. It is a state without attributes. Suppose the Absolute had a little sense of this I amness, would it care to enter a womb? During my meditation, attention is on consciousness itself. I realize I am aware of that pure consciousness, and so I am not it. Your spiritual background is good. You talk about pure consciousness, which is all-pervading manifestation and functioning. And in this state, witnessing happens. The fulfillment of meditation rests in totally obliterating the memory and non-memory of manifestation along with the sense of being. So long as the guna, sense of being, is there, witnessing happens. Abidance in the non-witnessing state is the Advaita state, the highest. Therefore, all experience must be swallowed, including the feeling of the sense of being, which is the primordial experience. As I have said earlier, when I am aware of that pure consciousness, at that point I am quite independent of my body and circumstances. I feel myself, the Absolute, as the origin of that consciousness, and behind this consciousness the I, as Absolute, remains in silent repose. You're talking of consciousness. Now tell me, what is the cause of this consciousness? It is the result of what? The product of what? Second visitor. Consciousness is a product of food. Yes, in the food essence, in this quality or guna, the sense of I amness dwells. But understand clearly, you or I are not that guna from the absolute standpoint. We, the absolute, are only posing as I amness. As the absolute, we are not that chemical I am. Later in my meditation, I seemed to move away from my state of awareness of pure consciousness and slide back into the bodily and mental existence. I seek your help at this point. Do nothing, absolutely nothing. Just be the knowledge I am only, and abide there. To imbibe this, meditate on beingness only. Catch hold of the knowledge I am in meditation. In this process, the realization occurs that I, the Absolute, am not the guna I am. Therefore, in meditation, nothing is to be retained as memory. Nevertheless, something will appear on the memory screen, but be unconcerned. Just be. Do nothing. Refrain from grasping anything in meditation. The moment you do, otherness begins, and so duality. Nothing is to be done. Then all your riddles will be solved and dissolved. Mula Maya, that is, the primary illusion, will release her stronghold on you and will get lost. In spirituality, there is no profit or loss, so also there will be no question of birth and death. As a matter of fact, you have no direct experience of birth. It is something like the incident of robbery that happened in Calcutta, of which I, residing in Bombay, never having been to Calcutta, am accused. Similarly, I am charged not only with this birth, but also with hundreds of previous births. I am not aware of any birth. Only my parents, whom I never knew, are charging me with this birth. With this state of affairs, are you not ashamed of accepting the charge of your birth? I was absolved of all these imaginary charges when I met my Satguru, who lit the torch of wisdom and showed me my true nature as the unborn. In the domain of the unborn, there is no place for the I am, nor the sun, the moon, the stars, the cosmos, etc. February 10th, 1980. Chapter 12. Whatever is perceived, you are not. I have read I Am That and came here on my own. Have you read the whole book? I have read the first part fully and the second partially. Having read the book, did you come to yourself at the witnessing state? Yes, I understood, but I do not feel it. I have no peace of mind. Do you get an inkling as to how you are connected with yourself? A little bit. Would you like to ask any questions? Not many, but I shall be grateful if I am told how to bring peace to my mind. Because of the self, the Atman, you are connected to the world through the body. The self is nothing else but the knowledge that you are. Meditate on that principle by which you know you are, and on account of which you experience the world. Meditate on this knowledge you are, which is the consciousness, and abide therein. But the concentration is just not there. Ignore the mind the way you disregard the crowd you encounter on the streets. I shall try. As a matter of fact, mind is a universal dynamic principle, but we restrict it to the limits of the body and then depend on it, hence all the trouble. Consider the water in Lake Tansa. That water belongs to the whole of Bombay. Out of that water, can we claim some as yours or mine? In a similar vein, understand that the self is universal, but you have conditioned it by confining it to the body. Therefore you face problems. This self is also termed Iswara, God, the universal principle. If you hold on to that, profound knowledge will descend upon you and you will have peace. I try to meditate on that, but the mind wanders here and there. If I try to remain indifferent to the mind, it will be a long drawn-out process. But you are not the root of any process. The root of everything is life. Yes, but the life force is universal and not personalized. Once you realize this, you have no more troubles. That is right, but when the mind goes astray, I have trouble. Sometimes I feel that life is universal, but at moments it becomes individualized. How to get rid of this? This is the conventional way of talking. The water is universal, use it when you possess it. Similarly, use the mind to meet your needs and then let it flow by itself without your interference and involvement, like the flow of a river from where you take water only when needed. My talks are for intelligent people. To a local visitor, "Why have you come? You will not understand these talks. You only sing bhajans in praise of God." Why do I respect those foreign visitors? They are earnest seekers in search of truth, but they have not been able to locate it. I appreciate their sincerity and deep urge to understand. They really go far. Any subject they take, they explore deeply into it. Although the two of us talk here, in actuality they, the two entities, are not there. This is the theme today. At first, no one is. Instantly one is, and then two. The subject of the talk is, how did these two reduce to one, and finally to nothing? Out of nothingness, spontaneously the sense of beingness is felt. This is one. Later, when the sense of beingness knows I am, duality begins. Then, after the duality has arisen, the sense of beingness identifies with the form, and so on. Actually, to refer to the sense of being as one is not quite correct, since in this state only the sense of being prevails, whereas the need to say even one. With the appearance of otherness, duality, both number one and number two appear simultaneously. To say something is, I must be there first. If I am not, I cannot say something is. So the fundamental principle in spirituality is that I must be there before anything else can be. This I is the beingness which is first. You said in the beginning there is one, and later there is none. When one looks into oneself, that is, when one abides in the self, then there is none. Yet when one merges, one remains. To say that is all right in common parlance, but actually it is nothing of the sort. But you said that life is eternal, so life is there, but not the life of an individual. It is the absolute transcending the universal consciousness. Life is eternal. That means life is there forever. Yes, life potential is always there. But unless a body form is available, there cannot be any sense of perception. When the body drops dead, the senses do not function. Therefore, no perception or knowing of the world takes place for that entity. Only so long as the senses operate is perception and knowing of the world possible. So in a way, the absence of sensory function is liberation. Isn't that correct? At present, I am alive and my senses and reflexes react to situations. The senses and reflexes of a dead person do not react. In the manifested universe, when the capacity for sensorial perception and motor function is created in a body form, only then is existence of a perceptible universe possible. The main point is that for a universe to exist, there must be an observer with sense organs in proper working order. The mind interprets the sense perceptions and concludes that the universe exists. Therefore, if the observer's sense organs and mind do not operate, then the observer's universe does not exist. But the senses of seeing, hearing, and touching, etc., belong to the body and not to the self, the Atman. Without Atman, the senses cannot function, but it resides in the quintessence of the body. When it subsides in itself, only Nirguna remains, the non-qualitative absolute. The Atman can change bodies. The Atman has no body, so how can it change? At present, it presumes that I am means body only. In this materialistic world, when we say we mean the body only, but if my legs are removed, they are apart from me. Therefore I feel that I, as such, am not the body. That is correct. So Atman is something other than the body. Atman is not the individual. This must be firmly grasped. Atman feels the sense of being only through the body, with senses operating. Otherwise, the Atman does not feel itself. To realize this, should I do meditation? Yes, meditation is very necessary. If you can do it continuously, it is good. But with a daily occupation, this is not always possible. Meditation done in the early morning hours is helpful and effective, but you may do it whenever you have leisure. Seekers with a deep urge can meditate at any time. In the beginning, a seeker should sit alone in a quiet spot with complete leisure at his disposal. When he attains stability in meditation, he can sit anywhere, any time. Suppose such an advanced seeker sits here in meditation. He will be totally lost within himself. His attention will be focused on attention only, with the result that he will not be aware of what is going on around him. Further, in such a state, nothing will occur to him. Meditation should be of this quality. Suppose somebody is deeply worried. Should he take note of these things going around him? When you sit in deep meditation, your sense of being is totally infused with the knowledge I am only. In such a state, it will be revealed to you intuitively as to how and why your sense of I amness emerged. By the I amness? Consciousness, beingness, sense of being, I amness, all are the same in you prior to the emanation of any words. This is a subtle point, so try to understand it clearly. When I say I was not prior to conception, then what I actually mean is that I was not like this present I am, but that I which could discern this must be there to judge the absence of the present I am. Owing to the absence of a body, that I prior to conception had no sense of being or sense of I amness. With the arrival of a body, the sense of I amness is imposed on the prior I. In meditation, this sense of I amness only will indicate how and why it came about. You must be possessed by this idea of finding out what this I amness is, just as you would not rest until you found the source of a smell emanating from some place. For example, if a foul smell emanates, you will have to go to that source. And when you discover that it is the decomposed body of a rat, you will have to dispose of that body in order to get rid of the stink. Similarly, if a nice fragrance wafts in your direction, you would like to locate the flower. You must go to the source of this I amness fragrance and find out its how and why. How does one chase that? The principle that gives rise to this I amness fragrance is termed Bhagavan Vasudeva, the God who gives fragrance. The one who receives this fragrance wants to retain it at all costs. How can one enter that state? You, from the body-mind level, are incapable of tracking it down. But that principle alone will discover itself. Somebody you may call Bhagavan or Vital or God is so infatuated with this fragrance that he wants to perpetuate it. One day my efforts will bear fruit, and I shall find him out automatically. His significance for you will be nullified the moment he is discovered, and you will be liberated from that infatuation with Vasudeva. In other words, I think when you always feel it so, you don't go after it. Once you realize the self, then it automatically comes to you, so there is no need for you to track it down. So once we realize it, we can use it in the way we want. In that state, you will be beyond any needs and wants. You will have no use for anything. No desires will be left because they are all fulfilled. I did not mean that I should use it for my worldly needs. What I meant was that I would become one with it. In actuality, you were never detached from it, so where is the question of being one with it? It is nice that I never got detached from it, but in my present state I consider myself only the body. This is a concept that you are the body and it is deluding you. Then I will be free. Let me recite a couplet of Guru Nanak. O mind, what are you searching? Inside and outside is one only. It is the concept that makes you feel inside and outside. Once the earthen pot bearing the name Nanak is broken, by getting rid of the concept that I am the body where is inside and outside, it is I, only, prevailing everywhere. Nanak further says, like the fragrance in a flower, like an image in a mirror, this sense of I amness is felt in the body. Therefore give up your name, Nanak, and also your identity with the body. Abide in the sense of I amness, and you shall be liberated. When I try to track down the self, it seems to me that it creates more selves. But who is it that sees so many selves? One thought produces further thoughts. Who observes the first thought? That is what I want to know. Only you are the observer of the first thought. If the knower of the first thought is not there, who will observe the other thoughts? If the knower is not, there will also be no thoughts. If you understand this, everything is over, you can go. To expound and propagate concepts is simple, but to drop all concepts is difficult and rare. How do I remove thoughts and new concepts? If all concepts and thoughts are removed, will I become one with that? Do not try to become anything. Do nothing. Without thinking on any of your words, remain quiet. Once a word sprouts, it creates a meaning, and then you ride on it. You follow the meanings of your words and claim that you are in search of yourself. So be wakeful to that state which is prior to the sprouting of words. Did you associate with any sages? This is the first time. Have you been reading any books? I have been reading Paul Brunton's work on Ramana Maharshi. Your spiritual background is ready. That is why you listen to the talks and try to understand them. Other people quarrel with me with their concepts. They are brimming over with concepts, with the result that they are unable to listen to what I say. Many people come here, presuming themselves to be very knowledgeable, but I know that they are ignorant only. However, I consider them as consciousness alone. All your identities at the body-mind level have been changing continuously, and none of them have been constant and faithful to you. Why then are you attracted to any such identities by stating, I am like this, I am like that? This is all mental. At certain moments I think I am like this, at other moments I think I am like that. Who, other than you, is observing those moments? You are the witness of these moments. Whatever is seen and perceived, and also whatever you see inside and outside you, that you are not. I am trying to understand. In meditation, you might convince yourself, I am Guru Nanak only. Or as some people in their meditation firmly believe, I am Bhagavan Sri Krishna only. None of such identities has any stability. The only stable one is the observer of those identities. And you, alone, are that observer, the eternal one. Take the example of a poor actor who played the role of a king so splendidly that he received a lot of praise. But he is not the king. Similarly, you are not Guru Nanak. You are the observer. Whatever you see and perceive is all the play of Maya, this elusive principle. February 19th, 1980. Chapter 13. You must exist prior to witnessing for witnessing to happen. You say you are writing a book. Have you the necessary self-knowledge, or are you doing without it? I am not writing a book on self-knowledge. If there is no self-knowledge, who then is the writer? I am writing a book on yogic asanas in conjunction with the teacher. It was not something out of my own mind. That is all right, but what about yourself, your nature, identity? You are writing something about physical activities. Ultimately, yes, I would like to know myself. If you are not, what else could there be? Why are you writing about these disciplines? It is only to know yourself, is it not? This will prepare a background for the seeker to prepare him for the search of the self. But is your own background ready? No, of course not. Then why did you write the book? Because it is a technical one with pictures. But the author does not know himself, so what's the use of the writings? In that case, I would rather be with you, but as I said, the book is technical and under the supervision of a teacher. But what is your profit in this? By doing this job, do you attain yourself? The most important gain in life is to realize oneself. I agree with you. In a sense, I probably gained during the time I was working on the book, meaning that I have grown in experience and maturity. That means with your experience you must have collected more concepts. Are you the one that grows in height and breadth? No. What is the purpose of your visit? Every time I visit you, I have a feeling of inspiration and exaltation. What is the use of that also? I understand what you are driving at. Who observes all this inspiration and exaltation? Who is the knower? You are not looking toward yourself. Instead, you are occupied with other things. Do you mean to say that while looking into myself, I should pursue my vocation also? Once you look inwards, everything will follow spontaneously for you. Before you recognized your mother, all things that concern you were happening spontaneously without your knowledge. Yes, I agree. You have developed into a human being naturally. Before this appearance, did you have any knowledge? Instead of paying attention to this aspect, you involve yourself in the affairs of others. Shall I stop then with my present occupation? There is no question of continuing or discontinuing your occupation. You should get to know yourself. But what should I do until I see myself? You have been doing something. Earlier you said, why was I involving myself in activities? Do not bother about doing or not doing. It is most important that you look at yourself. Second visitor. But at least he was doing something useful, like writing a book on yoga. What is yoga? What is that linking? Who meets what? Union of the soul with God. God is a word you have heard, while the soul is the direct experience of one's existence. I have expressed the meaning of yoga as generally understood. That means you do not understand true yoga. Do you know that only self-realized sages are worshipped and not the yogis? Am I wrong in following yoga? Many rishis and ascetics have practiced yoga, but are they worshipped? Addressing a newly arrived visitor who had met Anandamayi Ma, did you attain the state of Ananda when you went to her? If you had realized Anandamayi, you would never have visited her again, nor would you have come here. If you understand what I say, that is more than enough. It is not difficult to understand. Then why do you sit here? I would like to sit here for some time. Since you have been to Anandamayi, let us know what Ananda is. Does Ananda, the bliss, have a tangible form? I do not think so, but one can feel happiness. Agreed, but do you see it? Can you observe it? Sometimes I can see the essence of happiness emanating from Anandamayi Ma. Do you not think a knower has to be present prior to any seeing or feeling? After reading I Am That, I understand that a knower must be there before anything can be seen, felt, or experienced. You, as the witness, are prior to happiness. But the ultimate you, the real you, are prior to the witness you. Happiness is not lasting. Initially, during any meditation, when I had the experience of the witness within me, I was terribly afraid because I felt that I was split into two. This I do not have any more. You felt the split. Now, which one was you, the concept of seeing or the witness of the concept? I did not have such clarity. At least talk from the intellectual level if you did not directly experience the subtlety. I am the observer of the split. Explain the two stages. I was afraid that I would see the splitting. Was it the splitting of the concept, or was it the splitting of yourself? Neither. Yes, you, the Absolute, are neither one nor two, but you are prior to both. In the earlier days in India, when the head of the country rode in his car, its license plate had no number. Similarly, you do not need a number, being the highest. Maharaj is again talking to the visitor who wrote books on yoga. You are a yogi, and so you understand what I am saying. Yes, I understand a little, but I am not a yogi. But you have been studying yoga systems and practicing yoga. When you throw sugar or salt into water, they dissolve in it. Now I ask you, in what did you merge? Sometimes I merge. At other times, I was reciting the sacred name, doing japa. The purpose of japa is to conserve oneself. That means the knowingness is to be retained. Japa in Marti means to guard, to protect. You should protect your beingness by japa. Another visitor. What is beingness? What you are, the knowledge that you are, without words, just the sense of beingness. Who went to Anandamayi Ma, the body or the beingness? The latter is prior to the body, mind, and eruption of any words. Did you practice japa? Yes. Japa is like a treatment given to your beingness, just as you take medicine and apply poultices to your body for its well-being. That is what I feel strongly. You feel relaxed. Yes, very much, but now that I know something about witnessing, I wonder how I would be doing japa. Nevertheless, at the time you knew that you were doing japa. Yes. Then is this not witnessing or happening of witnessing to you? Yes. Witnessing happens naturally. When your words enter in me, I respond. Similarly, when we perceive anything through our senses, witnessing of the perceptions happens. No special efforts are called for. I want to ask about meditation and yoga. 10 years ago, Anandamayi Ma asked me to do japa. After some time, I started witnessing the japa going on in me. Then Anandamayi Ma told me to pursue it. My problem is how to attain I amness and beingness. The first witnessing is that you are. After that, all other witnessings occur. Unless the primary witnessing of you are happens first, any further witnessings are not possible. When the flow of words emanates in you, as I have already said, the witnessing of them happens naturally in you. I repeat, once again, the sense that you are should appear first, and subsequently, the flow of words and its witnessing take place simultaneously. Therefore, are you not prior to words? I don't know. That is exactly the ignorance, and to recognize it is knowledge. In the final analysis, you, the Absolute, are not this knowledge. May I ask a question? Remember Anandamayi, and with this in mind, put your question because she is your guru. Now I feel I am alone and that there is no guru. What you say is correct. In that understanding and only in that, you should stabilize. But before you came to this conclusion, did you understand what you are and what the guru is? The guru is someone who tells me what to do and I obey what is told to me. Shall we call the knowledge I am the guru? Yes, but even that knowledge you are not. When you say knowledge, do you mean consciousness? Of course, knowledge, I am, means consciousness, God, Ishwara, Guru, etc. But you, the Absolute, are not that. May I ask, who am I? Are you there before asking or after? Both ways. This is to be understood and realized that I am is even before the arising of any words and questions in me. People always want a name or concept to indicate the state of I am prior to words. When this is done by giving it a name, like for example Brahman, they feel satisfied. I am not happy, I am very afraid. Also right now or previously? Even now. That fear is due to your identification with the body-mind. When you have no knowledge of the body, can there be fear? No. When my guru told me I was the Brahman, this fear started. Exactly. With those words of the guru, your body-mind had a shock because its dissolution began. The fear that you have is in your mind. I know that, but I still have it. The body is afraid to be no more. Coming back to Anandamayi Mai, when Anandamayi merges into Anandamayi herself, that is the highest, the absolute only. Anandamayi denotes a blissful state, but still qualitative. It is consciousness. Is Anandamayi of this world? It is the other way. All the worlds rest in her womb. What is Anandamayi? Your state of bliss only, the knowledge you are. If this is not, nothing is. You consider Anandamayi as a personality, but it is nothing of the sort. Anandamayi is the state of being. March 13th, 1980. Chapter 14. Subtler than space is the sense of I amness. Beingness can act in the world only with the aid of a body. This body is the quintessence of the 5 elements, and the quintessence of the body essence is the knowledge I am. In the absence of a body form, the beingness cannot know itself. So you should hold on to that indwelling principle, the beingness only. The potential for all activities rests with beingness, which is in dormant condition in food body juices. These juices emanate from the 5 elements. The presiding principle of the whole functioning is the knowledge I am, which is the quintessence of the 5 elemental body. This knowledge I am has to be understood correctly. The beingness, vital breath, and mind are formless. In the course of the 5 elemental flow, various body forms of the multifarious species are created. When the vital breath infuses these different body forms, the beingness also expresses itself through them. Vegetable essence, which is called sattva, goes into the making of the diverse bodies of species. And in the bodies dwells the sattva sense of being. Each species is given a name according to the shape or form of the body. Expressions and actions of the species vary according to their body forms. Of all the species, the most evolved is the human being, who therefore qualifies for the title Ishvara, God. With the functioning of the vital breath, mind flow begins in a human body, and actions are performed according to samskaras, which are impressions collected from the outside by mind. A body may be dark, fair, tall, or short, but the indwelling principle, which is the knowledge I am, has no color or dimension, just like the vital breath and mind. It is merely a sense of presence, of feeling, of effulgence, and mind functions like its vehicle or medium for executing worldly activities. You want to meditate, and so you should. Real meditation is to abide in this sense of being. In fact, meditation means the sense of being holding on to itself. It is said that after death one goes to heaven or hell, but this is mere concept and hearsay. When a body has died, the indwelling Atman sense of being loses memory of its beingness and does not know it is. In that state, there is no sleep, waking, and knowingness. You should understand this clearly. If one thinks one is the body, one becomes a slave of mind and suffers accordingly. Therefore, you should completely identify yourself with the highest principle in you, which is the knowledge I am. This will elevate you to the status of Brihaspati, the guru of gods. You think you are somebody, but you are nothing of the sort. The sense of being is expressed through the body as a consequence of the all-pervading absolute. This sense of being is deeply infatuated with itself and is termed Atma Prem, self-love. It is also called Guna, Shiva, Brahman. It is the self-love that is functioning through different bodies. Since there is only this principle expressing itself in different ways through the different vehicles, there is no you, I, or he. When the body dies, it decomposes into the 5 primary elements, and the vital breath, prana, merges into the universal air, and the guna, that is the sense of being, instantly becomes nirguna, or non-being, just as a flame is extinguished instantly. Please listen to my talks intently. If there is no vital breath, the guna has no quality of being. Only so long as the guna exists do grand titles such as Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu apply. Without prana, the vital breath, there is no movement or dynamic quality, either of the body or even of the guna. In short, when its dear friend and attendant prana quits a body, the presiding principle, guna, also evaporates. In a heap of grain, consciousness is latent, and in the presence of favorable conditions it will manifest according to the form and quality of the species. If you have any questions on this topic, please ask. Are biological forms created naturally without any purpose? Yes, but a particular species procreates only within the pattern of its own image. Man does not beget a lower animal or vice versa. Coming back to the sense of I amness, you should understand that it is the subtlest principle, subtler than space even. When it is extinguished because of the death of the body and stopping of the vital breath, the event is termed nirjana or nirvana. This is a state in which there is no sample left of I amness, a sampleless condition absolutely. The state does not know it is, and is beyond happiness and suffering, and altogether beyond words. It is called the Para-Brahman, a non-experiential state. What is the blissful state in meditation? When the meditator forgets himself totally in meditation, it is Visranti, which means complete relaxation ending in total forgetfulness. This is the blissful state, where there is no need for words, concepts, or even the sense of I am. All concepts in us sprout out of the principle which was latent in the fetus. Is it not so? Yes. Could it be that our thought emanation also is already decided? The thoughts are not predestined, but are the reactions of impressions, samskaras, which are received now. God or Iswara is said to be omniscient, all-knowledgeable. What does that mean? Iswara is not an individual person. It is an all-pervading principle which is latent in everything. It is manifest in the 5 elements, the 3 gunas, and in the cycle of waking, sleep, and knowingness. Does it mean no duality? Duality is only at the body-mind level. In the all-pervading universal consciousness, millions of births take place every day. But in its basic absoluteness, it is ajanma, the unborn. Although as universal consciousness it is multi-qualitative, as the absolute state it is nirguna, non-qualitative. To an American woman who is a writer, you'd better go home soon before you fully imbibe this knowledge, otherwise you will be lost to all your identities. I cannot say, but I say, you will be relieved of the comings and goings of all your concepts. Even your sense of I amness will be liquidated. In this country, for ages, it has been accepted that a sacred name carries great spiritual potency if recited properly. It has no better substitute. Millions of persons in the world are personified by the names given to them because a name has utility on the worldly level. When you are initiated into a spiritual discipline with the sacred name, it means that it represents your ultimate true nature. Be one with the sacred name completely. Then it will give you all the mystic knowledge necessary for your spiritual elevation. It will awaken you into eternal awareness. This is the mystic word of Navamat Sampradaya, the traditional order of the 9 gurus. These gurus were neither cultured nor highly educated. According to one of the stories, a man sat on one of the highest branches of a tree, cutting the very branch he sat on from the wrong side. A guru passing that way, seeing the naive man's one-pointed attention, took pity on him and blessed him with the name which the man recited diligently. In due course, this simpleton himself became a great sage. Such is the power of this sacred name, recited with concentrated attention. March 29th, 1980.